Why bats, Master Wayne?
Bats frightened me. This time my enemies shared my dread.
This is the best explanation we get for why a man would decide to play dress up as a bat in a city when it's not Halloween, just to beat up petty criminals on the street, because Christopher Nolan was trying so hard to remove the frame of the comic book panel.
The idea that we were going to tell the story in a realistic fashion. We were going to remove the frame of the comic book panel, if you like, and not...
His words, not mine. In retrospect, it worked. This movie, as of when it came out, was literally the best thing that had ever happened to Batman, because for a while, his character wasn't being taken seriously at all. There have been a number of adaptations, some which were especially fun and campy, while others were plain garbage.
Stop it. Get some help.
But Nolan's vision was more or less intuitive. A serious Batman stripped of fantasy and placed in realism. This obviously birthed a question in many other directors' minds, and they in turn started placing comic book characters in the real world, which didn't really end well for some. But for Batman, it seemed easy. A child watches his parents get murdered in a city that never stops raining. He spends his whole life training in places that do not exist, like some hidden monastery. Then he comes home and decides to dress like a bat. He wasn't bitten by a radioactive bat or injected with some super serum. He doesn't have any powers, so this would be a piece of cake. The explanation by Christian Bale's Bruce would do the trick. Except it doesn't, because once you strip the comic out of Batman, you strip it out of everything else too. And at the end, it stops feeling like a superhero film and starts feeling like a crime thriller with a weird guy in a bat suit that can't turn his neck properly. The Dark Knight trilogy did what many people thought was impossible, and it remains a definitive moment in pop culture history. But to be fair to all the characters used in this film, the logical explanation given for their existence weighs the movies down at times. The craziness, lore, and messiness that made Batman and Gotham a great story were all missing. And in attempting to strip out the comic book panel, Nolan stripped out Batman too. The comics show us more than a guy in a bat suit fighting crime. They show a man plagued by a deeper psychological obsession with one goal and one vision. Not a guy trying to explain himself any chance he gets, but a man who would rather be misunderstood for the rest of his life, if that life could be spent fighting the shadow with a gun in the dark alley. So why do directors with great perception for filmmaking choose to ignore the one thing that makes the man a bat, leaving him in a world built to feel real? Now, we will be covering only the live-action adaptations of the character, using the cartoons, especially Batman the Brave and the Bold, as reference points, since they got almost all of the character right. But first, let's get one thing straight. What is Batman? Thomas and Martha Wayne died in an alley. That is where this story begins, and in many ways, that is where it ends. Because everything Bruce Wayne becomes, every broken bone, every sleepless night, every villain he puts through a wall, traces back to a child watching his parents collapse on wet concrete. That is his motivation, not justice in the clean courtroom sense of the word, not heroism, an obsession. A psychological wound so deep it restructured an entire human being from the inside out. Bruce Wayne didn't decide to become Batman. Batman was the only thing left after grief finished with Bruce Wayne. And grief, when it has 20 years and unlimited resources, builds something terrifying. Batman is what happens when a human being treats their own body like a weapon that needs to be forged. He has broken trees with a single kick, pulled steel apart with his bare hands. His grip strength alone has been documented in the comics as enough to crush rock, and he doesn't have powers. Yet he can exchange blows with gods in his universe, even lifting Solomon Grundy with one hand. Because he is a man who looked at the ceiling of human capability and decided it wasn't high enough, then kept going anyway. He has mastered every martial art on the planet. Not studied, mastered. Boxing, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Ninjutsu, Capoeira, wrestling, and then synthesized all of them into something that isn't any one style anymore. Something that exists only in him. When Batman fights, he isn't executing techniques. He is making decisions faster than most people can perceive. He reads a room full of armed men and disassembles it in seconds. The fight is already over before you realize it started. And his mind works at the same speed his body does. He is one of the greatest detective minds in the DC universe. A universe that contains literal gods and alien civilizations. He has outsmarted beings that can move planets. He has contingency plans for his allies, his enemies, and his contingency plans. There is even a file called Brother Eye, plans Batman quietly built to neutralize every member of the Justice League if they ever went rogue, Superman included.
My actions don't require any defense. In the same situation, I do it again. As individuals, and even more so as a group, the Justice League is far too dangerous to lack a failsafe against any possible misuse of our power.
We use our power to protect the world. We always have.
And what if we ever used it for some other purpose? If you people can't see the potential danger of an out-of-control Justice League, I don't need to wait for a vote. I don't belong here.
This is not paranoia. This is Batman. The obsession doesn't switch off when the threat level drops. It just finds a new problem to solve. And then there's the suit. The silhouette is designed to trigger fear. The pointed ears, the cape that swallows light, the way he moves so that you never hear him until he's already behind you. The armor beneath it is built to take punishment that would hospitalize anyone else and still keep moving. The utility belt is essentially a portable laboratory. The whole thing is a system designed by the world's greatest tactical mind to make one message absolutely clear before he says a single word. His lifestyle reinforces it. Bruce Wayne, the billionaire playboy, is a performance, a mask he wears over his real mask. His actual life is the cave, the training, the preparation, the endless, grinding dedication to a city that is just as obsessive in its desire to destroy itself as he is in his desire to save it. Batman makes sense because he isn't the only extreme figure in Gotham. Gotham is filled with people who have trained as hard as Batman, some with powers, many without, whether good or evil. Batman isn't the odd one out. It is a city where corruption doesn't hide. It sits in the mayor's office, the police commissioner's chair, the courthouse, where crime doesn't happen despite the system, but because of it. Where the streets are so broken, so thoroughly soaked in violence and madness, that when a man in a bat suit lands in front of a criminal, the criminal's first instinct isn't confusion, it's terror. Because they've seen stranger things on these streets, and none of those things ended well. His allies reflect that world. Alfred, who was a trained intelligence operative before he ever became a butler. Lucius Fox, one of the most brilliant engineers alive. Dick Grayson, an Olympic-level acrobat before he was even a teenager, now trained directly by Batman himself. There's Lady Shiva, my personal favorite, someone who can fight through an army without breaking a sweat. Because you don't operate in Gotham and stay ordinary. The city burns that out of you fast. The DC universe is also filled with powerless heroes who mastered multiple martial arts just to survive in a world of gods and monsters. And they do inhuman things too. And then there are the villains. Each one is what happens when obsession runs all the way to its conclusion, with nothing stopping it. The Joker, whose commitment to chaos is so complete he has no self-preservation instinct left. He becomes the one enemy Batman's tactical mind can never fully predict because he doesn't operate on logic. The Riddler, whose compulsion to prove his intelligence is so consuming he cannot commit a crime without leaving a trail of clues. Because being caught without credit is worse to him than being caught at all. Bane, who broke himself the same way Batman did, through suffering and will, and came out the other side without the compassion. Ra's al Ghul, who has had centuries to perfect his conviction that Gotham deserves to burn. And because of that conviction, he becomes something unnatural, an immortal through the Lazarus pit with superhuman strength. And yes, he has mastered martial arts too. Then he teaches those skills to others and calls them the League of Assassins. How is this supposed to be made realistic? And then there are the ones who stopped being human entirely. Killer Croc, whose condition pushed him beyond what we recognize as a person. Clayface, who is barely a body anymore. Man-Bat, who reached for something greater and lost himself in the reaching. They match Batman in obsession, in intelligence, in physical capability, and then they go somewhere he won't follow. Not because he can't, because he chooses not to. That choice is everything. Batman is a horror character.
They're drawn to you.
Or maybe it's your cologne, Batsy.
This one has cheated us many times. It is vexing.
Boo.
Let's be clear about that. He is something that drops from ceilings, that appears behind you in silence, that has broken people, genuinely broken them psychologically, simply by existing in the same room. His entire methodology is built on fear as a tool. He chose the bat specifically because bats frighten people. He wanted to be a creature of the night, not a symbol of hope. And yet, he does not kill. In a life built entirely around obsession, in a world that has given him every reason to become exactly what he fights, the one line he refuses to cross is the one that would make him indistinguishable from the darkness he came from. It is not a rule born from weakness. It is the hardest thing he does, every single night. That is what makes him a hero, not the suit, not the gadgets, not the money. The fact that something this close to a monster looked at itself in the mirror and decided, consciously, repeatedly, at enormous personal cost, to be something else instead. That is Batman. And that is exactly what realism cannot hold. Before Christopher Nolan ever put Christian Bale in a Batsuit, Batman had already lived several lives on screen, and none of them were particularly accurate. But that's not entirely the point. 1966. Adam West puts on the suit and the world laughs, intentionally. The Batman TV show was never trying to be serious, and it never pretended otherwise. West's Batman is confident, competent, and completely absurd in the best possible way. He carries shark repellent in his utility belt. He runs through crowds holding a lit bomb, desperately looking for somewhere to put it. He delivers moral lectures to children between fights. It is ridiculous. It is also genuinely fun, and within its own logic, it works. The show commits completely to its version of the world and asks you to come with it. But this is not Bruce Wayne. This is a man who clearly enjoys being Batman, who has a healthy relationship with Alfred, who goes home at a reasonable hour. The obsession isn't there, and that's fine. It wasn't trying to find any of those things. It was trying to sell toys and make children laugh on a Tuesday afternoon. It succeeded. It's just not Batman. Then 1989 happens, and Tim Burton does something genuinely important. He builds Gotham, an actual Gothic fever dream. Towering expressionist architecture, permanent darkness, streets that feel like they were designed by someone who had never seen sunlight and wasn't sure they wanted to. Burton understood instinctively that Gotham is not a real place. It is a mood, a mythology, and his production design reflects that in every single frame. Michael Keaton's Batman is also genuinely strange in ways that are interesting. He's quiet, slightly off, socially awkward, in a way that suggests something is not quite right beneath the surface. But then the film pulls back, because ultimately, Burton is more interested in his villains than his hero. Jack Nicholson's Joker consumes every room he enters, and the movie happily lets him. Keaton's Bruce becomes reactive. He exists in relation to the Joker, rather than as a force in his own right. The psychology is hinted at, but never fully excavated. And I must say, the film has a lot of weird scenes, and Batman kills a guy for some reason. Then Joel Schumacher arrives, and the conversation changes entirely. Batman Forever and Batman and Robin are not failed attempts at Batman. They are not attempts at Batman at all. They are attempts at a theme park ride that happens to feature a man called Batman, the neon, the rubber nipples, the Mr. Freeze ice puns delivered with complete sincerity by Arnold Schwarzenegger, Val Kilmer, and then George Clooney, wearing the suit with the energy of men who are slightly embarrassed to be there but are being paid well. These films took Burton's theatrical Gotham and removed everything that gave it weight. What remained was spectacle, loud, colorful, completely hollow. They are fun in the way a sugar crash is fun, enjoyable briefly, and then you feel slightly ill. But here's the thing. Even Schumacher, in his maximalist absurdity, understood one thing Burton understood. Batman exists in a world that doesn't follow real-world rules. Gotham in these films is insane, but it is consistently insane. The villains are theatrical because the world is theatrical. Everything matches, even if what it matches is nonsense. That instinct, however accidentally preserved, is more faithful to the source material than what came next. Christopher Nolan looked at a broken character and decided to fix him. After Schumacher's neon disaster, Batman was a punchline. So Nolan made a decision. Strip it back. Remove the camp. Remove the fantasy. Ground every single element in a reality audiences could recognize and respect. Give Batman the serious treatment. And in doing so, he accidentally removed Batman entirely. Batman Begins opens with the right wound. Thomas and Martha Wayne die in that alley, and young Bruce's world ends. The grief is real. The trauma is real. But then Bruce Wayne grows up, travels, trains, finds a mentor, and emerges with a purpose and a plan. A clean, psychologically coherent arc where a damaged man works through his trauma. That is a good story. It is not Bruce Wayne's story. Comic Bruce Wayne does not work through his trauma. He builds a cave underneath it and lives there. The obsession does not resolve, it deepens. Christian Bale's Bruce wants to become Batman so he can eventually stop being Batman. He says this out loud. He has a retirement plan.
You used to talk about finishing about a life beyond that awful cave.
But Batman should find that idea genuinely confusing, because Batman is not what Bruce Wayne does. It is what Bruce Wayne is. The mask isn't the cowl. The mask is the name Bruce Wayne. And then there is the physicality. Batman in the comics is not merely competent, he is terrifying. He has mastered every martial art on the planet and synthesized them into something that exists only in him.
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
Which is realistic, which is exactly the problem. His intelligence suffers the same ceiling. There are moments where you feel the brilliance working, the sonar surveillance system in The Dark Knight, especially. But Nolan's Bruce is reactive in a way comic Batman never is. The Joker genuinely outmaneuvers him repeatedly, which makes for incredible cinema, which is also a fundamental misunderstanding of who Batman is. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he should have the thinking capability of Brainiac, but he never really gets a solid hold on the mentality of his villains, even after meeting them. He always needs someone to talk sense into him before he comes up with a good plan. Take this scene, for example. This is a grown Bruce without the training. He didn't make the decision to reject the gun on his own. A grown Bruce, by the way. It's only after he talks with Rachel that he decides to drop guns and learn a new way to fight the system. A decision that should have been made the moment his parents' bodies hit the ground. Basically, he needs someone to tell him to become Batman. The emotional side of him shows too often, draining away the calculated side we were supposed to see. The Joker in the comics has never outmaneuvered Batman strategically. He challenges him morally, psychologically, ideologically. But Batman always has a contingency. Nolan needed Batman to be catchable because an uncatchable Batman makes for bad drama. The cost is a Bruce Wayne who feels like the second smartest person in his own story. Now the villains. Heath Ledger's performance is one of the greatest in comic book cinema history. That is not debatable. But here's the distinction worth making, and it is not a criticism of Ledger. It is a criticism of the concept. Nolan's Joker has an ideology. He wants to prove that civilization is a thin veneer, that people abandon morality when pushed far enough.
They're only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
He is cynicism versus order given human form. Compelling. But the comic Joker is not trying to prove anything. He is not making an argument. He kills people because the idea of it amuses him in a way no person with a functioning moral compass could access. The difference between Ledger's Joker and the comic Joker is the difference between a philosopher and a hurricane. One wants to change your mind. The other does not care whether you have one. One uses the idea of pain to push a narrative. The other uses pain because, to him, it's amusing. Ra's al Ghul in the comics has lived for centuries. Liam Neeson plays a mentor, wise, measured, philosophically interesting. But a mentor. The ideology is there in outline. The physicality, the obsession, the ancient terrifying conviction, gone. Bane is what happens when someone matches Batman's obsession and physical dedication without the moral restraint. Tom Hardy's Bane is a compelling terrorist with an interesting voice.
It must be Master Bear.
But he is not Bane. Without the physical supremacy, the entire point of the character disappears. And speaking of voices, I love Christian Bale as Batman, but I can't take the character seriously with that voice.
Where's the trigger? Where is it?
You have my permission to die.
If we go back to 1966 and the animations, there is something minor but absolutely fundamental to the character. Batman only changes his voice when he is talking as Bruce, not the other way around. Because his real identity is Batman, and Bruce is the mask.
Mr. Freeze wants what?
Hello? I'll see if I can get him, Chief O'Hara.
A moment, Commissioner. Chief O'Hara, this is Bruce Wayne. Mr. Freeze wants what?
So when you talk to Batman without the suit as an ally, you should still hear Batman.
A call for Master Bruce from a Dr. March.
Hey, what's up, Doc?
You have bats, Mr. Wayne. Common brown bats.
Return the favor next time you're raising funds. Bye-bye.
This computer checked that fiber against every animal species known to man.
And then there is Gotham. Nolan filmed in Chicago. That sentence is not a complaint about logistics. It is a statement about philosophy. Gotham is not a backdrop. It is a character, a city that exists to produce Batman. Its corruption, structural, generational, built into the foundations. Nolan's Gotham is a city with a crime problem. Serious, realistic, a city that could exist, which means it is a city that could theoretically be fixed through policy reform and effective policing. You cannot policy reform your way out of the Joker. Comic Gotham understands this. It requires something beyond policemen fighting an army of terrorists. Nolan's Gotham just needed a better funded police department, which is a fine setting for a crime thriller. It's just not Gotham. Here's the thing though, none of this was ignorance. Nolan is one of the most intelligent filmmakers working. He made a deliberate, considered choice to remove the comic book panel because he believed that was the only way to make Batman credible to a mainstream audience in 2005. And after Batman and Robin, he was probably right. The Dark Knight trilogy proved superhero films could carry real themes, real performances, real moral weight. It opened a door the entire genre walked through. Without Nolan, none of what came after looks the same. But in proving Batman could be serious, Nolan also argued, implicitly, through every creative choice, that the only way Batman could be serious was if he was real. And that argument has haunted the character ever since. In stripping out the comic book panel, he stripped out the mythology. He gave us a brilliant, grounded crime thriller about a man who dresses like a bat. He just forgot to give us Batman. If you've made it this far and you're feeling something about that, whether you agree or want to fight me in the comments, hit subscribe. Because we're not done yet. Matt Reeves thought he fixed what Nolan got wrong. Let's talk about that. Let's establish something first. Matt Reeves loves Batman. That love is visible in every single frame of this film. And unlike Nolan, who announced he was removing the comic book panel, Reeves genuinely believes he is making the definitive Batman. Every creative decision comes from a place of deep respect for the source material. And that sincerity is precisely what makes this so frustrating, because he gets so much right. Robert Pattinson's Bruce does not have a retirement plan. He barely exists outside the cave. The diary entries, the way he moves through civilian spaces like someone wearing a skin that doesn't quite fit. Pattinson found the obsession in a way Bale never fully did. This Bruce is not performing normalcy and waiting to go back to the Cape. He is someone for whom Batman is the only context in which he feels coherent. That is closer to the comic version than anything we have seen on screen before. The opening sequence, where Batman is seen as something that could emerge out of any dark alley. The idea of him is shown as scary, not told to us. This brings me back to Nolan's trilogy. Everything about Batman and Gotham was always explained to us rather than shown. We were told that Gotham is rotting from the inside.
And your own pain, Bruce. This city is rotting.
We were told that people should fear Batman.
That's frightened me. This time my enemies shared my dread.
We were told that Bruce Wayne was the mask, but we never really got to see any of those things. Reeves showed us the fear that both the criminals and civilians had for Mr. Vengeance. That is the horror character energy the comics understand. That is the creature of the night. For about 90 seconds, Reeves finds exactly what this character is supposed to feel like. But then the realism ceiling arrives, and it always arrives. This Batman gets hit a lot, takes damage, gets blown up, and has to be revived. He is again a man in good armor doing his best. He doesn't treat his body as a weapon, but as a goddamn tank, just bulldozing his way through every fight. His fighting isn't refined the way Batman's should be. Instead, his fights are filled with contempt and just a little restraint. The mythic quality that the opening sequence promises keeps getting interrupted by a Bruce Wayne who is still fundamentally mortal in ways that undercut the image every time it starts to build. He is also in year 2, still becoming, still making mistakes, which is a legitimate creative choice, but he still lacks in some aspects, which is notable, and it adds more nuance to the character. We get to see him grow through his experience in the field as Batman. Reeves' Batman really would have benefited from being something mythic, but the commitment to realism pulls him back just short of it every single time. Now, if you want the full breakdown of what Reeves did with the Riddler and Gotham specifically, I actually covered both in detail in my Riddler video. The link is somewhere on screen right now or in the description, because what Reeves built around that character deserves its own conversation, and we already had it. What matters here is this. The Batman is the most faithful, unfaithful Batman film ever made. It gets closer than anything before it, and still hits the same ceiling. Which leaves one question. Is anyone actually going to break through it? One honorable mention, Ben Affleck's Batman. Look, Batfleck exists in a complicated situation because he never really got his own film. He showed up in Batman v Superman, Justice League, and a Flash cameo. That's not a Batman story. That's a supporting character in someone else's movie. And it shows. Affleck's Bruce Wayne is one of the most uninteresting versions of the character we have seen on screen, a Batman who brands criminals and kills people, which misses the entire point of the character in one creative decision. Zack Snyder's vision for Batman deserves its own conversation, honestly, because there is so much to unpack there that a paragraph wouldn't do it justice. So we'll leave Batfleck here, acknowledged, assessed, and moved on from, just like the DCEU did. If there's any piece of media that captures this character in both its realistic and fantastical light, it would be the Arkham games. They didn't remove realism. They buried it underneath the mythology instead of the other way around. Batman's suit has tactical logic. His detective work is forensically grounded. The realism is there, but it serves the myth rather than replacing it. The Joker runs Arkham Asylum like a kingdom, and it makes complete sense because in this world, he is exactly the kind of force that could do that. And Batman in this world is the most terrifying thing in it. Not the best funded, not the most well-armored, the most terrifying.
About Riddler.
I'll tell you everything!
Thank you.
That is the balance. That is what every live-action adaptation keeps reaching for and keeps missing in the same direction. And that is exactly what gives me hope about James Gunn's DCU. Because Gunn just put a shape-shifting clay monster in the same universe as a man who punches kaijus. And it didn't feel jarring. It felt earned. Because this universe understands that personal stakes and enormous scale can exist simultaneously. That the bizarre and the human can live in the same story. For the first time, the universe being built around Batman actually justifies him completely. The world is finally strange enough. Finally broken enough. Finally Gotham enough. A Batman who does not explain himself. Who is not trying to make you understand him. Who would rather spend his entire life being misunderstood if that life can be spent fighting the shadow with a gun in a dark alley. The more realistic Batman becomes, the less he feels like Batman. Not because realism is bad filmmaking. The Dark Knight is one of the greatest films ever made. The Batman is one of the most atmospheric superhero films ever committed to screen. But brilliant is not the same as true, and none of them have yet made the true Batman film. That film doesn't exist yet. But this time, it genuinely feels like it might. I did a full breakdown of Clayface and why the DCU's approach is changing everything. Link is on screen. And if this video made you see Batman differently, subscribe, because we're just getting started.